My name is Joanna. I am here with Miss Marina Burana. We are here interviewing for her work in the Configured Personas show, showing now at Alpha Art Gallery. For me, it's good morning. For you, it's good evening, right?
Yes, it's the night.
Wow.
It's like 9 p.m.
That's so crazy. I didn't realize there was like such a, I mean, I knew there was a time difference. I didn't realize it was such a big one
I'm,
though.
I'm from the future, It's
Yeah.
like Tuesday night.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night. I emailed you about like I don't know, 8, 9 p.m. my time, and I'm like, oh, for her it's like I'm interviewing her tonight for her, but for me I'm interviewing her tomorrow. That's just such a weird concept to
Yes,
me.
I know.
Is there anything you want to say to introduce yourself or anything real quick?
I'm from Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been living in Taiwan for 9 years. And I'm mainly a painter or a maker of things.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah. So let's talk about speaking of that, what made you kind of choose your medium? Like you normally work in paints? Like is that oils, acrylic?
Yeah, I mainly use oils,
Okay.
and I chose oils because I've always been fascinated with the texture of oils and, you know, the possibilities. You could do so many things with it, and how you can play with colors and splash the paint.
Right.
But I have been experimenting with more natural mediums. Like, well, since last year, I've been making Barcloth. I use the inner bark of a tree called paper mulberry tree. And what I do is I take off the bark and then I scrape the outer bark of the tree, the brown color,
Yeah.
and I use the inner bark, which is kind of white,
Hmm.
yellowish. And then I beat it with wooden beaters for a long time. This is a very long process. And then it expands. And what you get is like a paper or a cloth like thing
Huh.
on which you can paint. And there I paint with earth pigments, like rocks that I find in the beach, in the mountain, and I grind them, I add water, and then I paint with that on the Barcloth. So
Wow.
yeah, I think that those mediums are my main mediums. Yeah.
That's really interesting. What is that? Does that have any significance to you? Like the wood itself?
The Barcloth, you mean, that whole
Yeah.
process? Yes. Oh, it has changed my life actually. This
Wow.
is an ancient tradition of the of Polynesian culture, like in different islands of the Pacific and also in Southeast Asia, because this tree was taken from Southeast Asia to the Polynesia to the islands of the Pacific, and like in many places like Tonga, Hawaii, New Zealand, Indonesia, Taiwan, this belongs to these
Mhm.
cultures, and it has so much significance. It's not just about making it, but it's a way of living and a way of creating community, because they use it nowadays to wrap up babies or wrap up the dead, and it has a whole very deep meaning. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know any of that. That's very interesting. Yeah, that you kind of turned that into like an art medium.
Yes.
That's very cool. Yeah, you cite a lot of different things as like kind of inspirations for your work. Like you talk about poetry and nature and movement and memory and all these things. Like, so how do you choose like subjects for your artwork?
I think it's not easy for me to do that at all. But when I started painting, and I had to teach myself how to paint. And at the beginning, you always you do still lives because you're learning the technique.
Hmm.
But then I started like kind of focusing on uh, more abstract things, or things that were in my mind, and that had a lot to do with reading poems. I love literature. I'm an addict, like I'm a reading addict. every time I read a poem, sometimes it happens that I want to paint it, because it's like human nature, you know, you want to grasp, you want to take something that is like, you cannot take it, you know, the feeling that, you know, when you read a poem, you feel like, oh, I'm floating, and you want to, you know, you want to do that physical, and it's impossible, but you know, that's when I want to paint it. But those endeavors are always very frustrating. I don't think I can do that. But lately I've been focusing much more like on still life, but it's like a mix, I guess it's a mixture of still life and this other thing that has nothing to do with the actual subject, because like I've been painting plants and flowers because I'm obsessed with how plants behave, and but I realized that it's not that I'm actually painting what I'm seeing. It's like the flower triggers off something, and then I just paint what comes up. That it may or may not have anything to do with what I'm actually looking at. Yeah.
No, I like that. It's just, whatever comes to mind is just what comes out. Yeah. I mean, the creative process is so like personal for each artist. It's interesting to hear someone try and describe that, because I know it's not easy.
Oh no.
Yeah. But so that kind of, I mean, you kind of already answered this, but your background is so interesting culturally. Like I don't know, you're part of like all these different cultures. Does that come out in the art besides like the medium that you already touched on? Does that ever come out like style wise?
I guess so. I mean, definitely yes. Yeah. But the thing is, for me, is that you know, in Argentina, I never studied painting, and I didn't really know about Argentinian painters, or you know, our history of painters, and when I came, and then I studied at the Art Students League of New York. I studied drawing and painting there, and then in Taiwan I studied my whole studies at university, all in Chinese, you know. And so, and I cried a lot because when I started, my Chinese was so basic and I didn't understand anything.
Chinese is very difficult. It is.
It is.
Yeah.
So I think that it's like I am so used to being in contact with works from this side of the country, like of the world, like you know, Asian art. And then when I studied at university, it was all about the history of Asian art, or you know, like Chinese ink and calligraphy, and I had to study the old Chinese painting masters. And it's like it's a very interesting process, because I see the world in a way that it's not my own, but it is kind of my own. It's kind of strange, you know, because I used to look at what my classmates painted, and it's so different than what I was used to in my country, you know, in Argentina. And not that in Argentina I was really aware of it, but you know, I grew up there, so it was around. I know, you know, you have that artwork in your mind, in your cultural self, let's say. And so it's kind of like, it's very hard to describe, really, now that I think of it, because I think that I'm nearer to the way of expression that, let's say, Taiwanese artists or Japanese or Chinese artists have, but at the same time, I'm not part of their culture, really.
Right.
So, you know.
Right. Well, I'm sure it's impossible not to be influenced by like all these different places that you've been. Like,
I think that I am definitely influenced. You know, when I draw, I always draw like Asian faces. I never. It's everywhere, but I add different elements that have to do with my growing up in Argentina, and it's like this very strange mixture of things, you know.
Right. No, I'm sure. Well, that makes it very unique for you, I think. Just how many languages do you speak?
I speak like 5 or 6. Well, I speak Spanish. Well, that's my mother tongue, and I speak English. Chinese, French, and I can read ancient Greek, but nobody speaks ancient Greek. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Did you learn that just for like history reasons? Like,
French, I learned it because I wanted to read some French authors, and
wow.
then like a long time ago. And then Chinese, well, I had to learn it because
Right.
I was in Taiwan. And then ancient Greek, I studied it because I studied it at university in Argentina. I was studying literature, and it was one of the subjects, and I took the subject, and I got, I loved it. I absolutely adore
Wow.
it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's an impressive hobby. It's not easy, especially languages like that. It sounds like you've chosen some of the hardest languages for, like...
I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, well, you like to challenge yourself. That's okay. Has your practice, like, changed over time, do you think? Like, living in all these different places, like your, whatever that means for you, like your style, your...
I started painting, like, when I was 26. I mean, I painted and drew before that, but not like seriously, not like, well, I want to do this. So it's like my practice is always changing a lot, because I'm kind of like, at the beginning, you're really playing and you're not worried, or you're not thinking about finding, let's say, your own voice, let's say. So it has changed a lot. And when I first started painting, my idea of painting was, well, it's about telling stories. So I painted people, like faces, because I thought that's how you tell a story. You cannot tell a story by painting a flower. I mean, this was not, I didn't think that like this.
Right. Yeah.
It was there.
That was your process. Yeah.
So I started painting like very, figurative, and there were many faces and all. And I kind of let that go and started focusing in some more abstract kind of ways of expressing narratives, and so it's a constant. And now that, these past few years where I have been really focusing on nature and on really doing things more naturally, more in contact with nature, I mean, my works have definitely taken another direction.
Like, is that recently, or just like back when you were still like, kind of learning?
Well, you mean the nature part, or?
Well, kind of like the direction that it changed. Yeah.
It has changed now, but it used to change a lot before. Now I am more comfortable with what I'm doing. Like, I'm very comfortable using the mediums, because before it was like, I don't really know how I want to use the mediums. I didn't really have the proper technique, or, but now I'm very comfortable. So it is definitely changing. It is always evolving, of course.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's normal. It's, you kind of change, like, experiences, yes. So I think that's normal. So do you have, like, I don't know, do you have any perception of what your role as an artist, like, should be? Like,
okay, so this question is very difficult for me, and I will explain to you why.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we live in a world where we're led to believe that some people are artists and some people are not artists. And, for centuries, we've been thinking of artists, in this bohemian kind of way, or, as if they were special, or, talented people. And we are always looking for those labels, and, this person is not an artist, this person is an artist, or whatever. And this is a way of looking at the world that really structures our mind and really focuses on the differences. And because we're led to believe that these labels are real, and that we have to achieve something, oh, I could be like that, oh, I cannot be like that, I was not born to do that. And that is like, it's great for, capitalism, colonization, it's perfect because it, but art is so much more than those things. And for me, I feel. And so, like, on the one hand, you have people who have no access to water, and they have no education, and their lives, they cannot really, they don't know the potential of their lives because they were not given a chance.
Right.
And then on the other hand, you have this concept of art. And for me, art is every little thing. Everybody is an artist, because if you do something genuinely, if it's true to you, and you nurture time and you nurture love, which in itself needs time, there in itself you have a powerful artistic expression already. So I think we have to be very careful when we talk about art and artists, because sure, yeah, we can talk about art and artists in this kind of way, but I think it fractures many things, and it doesn't help us see that there's so much more, and that we don't really have to follow those structures that really harm us. And like, you know, you're in a group of people and you say artists, and you don't know, but maybe there's a person there that has no connection to art, because they haven't had the possibility or whatever. And they might think, because this is already imbued in these concepts of art and artists, right? They might think, oh, I'm not special, or, you know, I could do it, but I can't, and I was not born with it. And I don't want people to feel they are not special. I want to feel that we're all special together, because this is what we're doing. We're living in these minds and bodies that they don't really belong to us. So I think this is a very complicated question for me, because I don't see myself as an artist and as I have to give a message or art in society. I think society as a whole is art, and we're all together here to help each other connect in that very communal way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
but I think you put it into words very poetically. That's extremely fascinating, I think, because I think it's true. Art, especially today, has a lot to do with like what kind of situation you're just born into. You know, just some people just have opportunities that others don't. And you're right, it's a shame, because some people just never discover kind of what their ability can be.
It is a very unfair and decadent world, you know?
Yeah, it is, but...
Sorry, I don't want to sound like dark.
Yeah, it's true, yeah. I mean, that kind of almost leads into the other questions that I had. Like, has the pandemic influenced you at all? Like, I mean, I'm sure it has, but like in creating your work, has it had any influence?
No.
No? Really? Okay.
No, the truth is that this is the truth. You know, Taiwan, I don't know if you know this, but we had the pandemic like for a very short period of time at the beginning of the year. And then we didn't have the virus anymore, and we never had quarantine.
Wow.
Because people are used to, when I came here in 2011, I remember I was surprised that people were in the street with masks, like a normal thing. And I would ask friends about that, and they would say, no, oh yeah, I wear a mask because the air quality today is not very good, or I wear a mask because I have a cough, like just like that, you know. And I was like, wow, they do this. This is so strange. We don't do that in my country. And, you know, they had the SARS in 2003, and, you know, a lot of people died because of that virus. And then they have an experience with a sort of pandemic already here in Taiwan. And the government, whether some people like it or if you don't like it, it works. So people in the streets, as soon as the pandemic went out of China, here everybody was like with the masks, with the alcohol. But this is normal. Like, wow. I mean, in the very beginning, they always had alcohol everywhere in the streets, and the masks. So it was just a little, you know, one step, but it was already there. So, you know, we didn't have it much, and it disappeared. I hope it doesn't come back again, right? But so our lives were not altered that much. And anyway, because I paint, I'm all the time in my studio, so my life is not it's like, well, I'm in my studio painting, you know.
No, that's interesting, because I've spoken to American artists who just, I mean, their whole lives turned around, like their whole lives changed. They were quarantined and they were secluded, and it completely changed how they produce. I know.
And imagine, you know, like my husband, he's a musician. And when the pandemic first started here, of course, all the gigs were canceled, and it was really tough. And, you know, we have friends in other countries, and they are having like it's a super bad situation because they have
everything. Yeah.
nothing. And in my country, my family, they are struggling. It's really, it's really complicated.
Wow. Well, it's interesting to hear such a different perspective. So
yeah, like nobody knows about Taiwan. Like nobody knows.
I don't know. You see like pictures of people like in China, and you kind of just like automatically like assimilate them. But yeah, so that's interesting to hear like such a different perspective than what like I'm used to personally.
And the process of the pandemic was very interesting because when it started happening in China and in Taiwan, Indonesia, Vietnam, in these countries, like in the West, nobody cared. Like nobody talked about it. Okay, yeah, Southeastern people died. That's normal, that's okay. I don't know. But then when it happened in the West, it was like, oh no, this is terrible. We have to be together. But what about,
right.
That's
very true. Yeah. That's interesting. No, I think that's true. A lot of people don't kind of pay attention until it happens to them. Yeah. Closing up here, you've submitted a lot of different works. Is there one show that's your favorite?
Oh yeah, there is one. The one based on a poem by Alejandra Pizarnik. She was a poet, an Argentinian poet. She was born in 1936 and she died in 1972. She died young. And then I like that painting because I like the poem and I like the colors of that painting. The poem, I can read you the poem.
Okay.
Wait, I have it in English, but it's in Spanish, right?
Yeah, whatever sounds better.
I will read it in English.
Okay.
And it's very, very short. It's, for 1 minute of fleeting life, the only one in which eyes are open, for 1 minute of seeing, small flowers dance in the brain like words in a mute person's mouth. So when I read this poem, I read so many times in my life, I kind of imagined, like, I don't know why, like flowers everywhere, like dancing, right? Because it says small flowers dance in the brain, and I thought that the whole thing was the brain, because the painting has a woman there, and with lots of colors and flowers, and at the same, this poem is kind of sad in a way, but it is also colorful. So I don't know, it is significant to me. That's why that's my favorite.
Okay, well, that's a very good reason to have a favorite. So just one last thing. When people view your art, is there anything you want your audience to take away from it?
Not really. It's not that I think about one specifically, but I like this very much. When, there is Martin Eslin, he wrote the book, The Theater of the Absurd. And in that book, he said once something that it's so true. He says, when A says, I'm in love to B, B can only understand this from her own perspective, which may differ significantly in kind or intensity with that of A's. So what A is actually doing, instead of having communicated A's sense of being, he's like triggering off B's mode of feeling. So no real communication has taken place. This is what Martin Eslin says. Okay. And I think this is so beautiful because when I paint, I'm creating a narrative. I'm sort of saying I'm in love, and then the viewer looks at that and they will take that in their own way, right, as we know, and they will create a different narrative. And what I like is that fracture in our communication, in that I may not be able to communicate with you because you're going to go into a separate way, you're going to have your own idea, and I love that. It's like, it's so precious. It's like we couldn't communicate but we are communicating at the same time. So if I have to think about the viewer, I would think about what Martin Eslin said, this very magical way of communicating and not communicating with each other.
Okay, well, Yeah. I mean, they always say art is subjective, so I guess there's no way to control what people will take away from it, no matter how much you might want to. So I think that's very
But that's the thing.
fascinating.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want something specific. Like, I
Right.
love that it's
Right.
there. It's yours,
Right.
it's ours.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, art is just another way for people to communicate, even people through other languages. You can speak any language, but you can look at a piece of art and just take away what you will from it, regardless of your culture and the language of the artist. Yeah. So that's very interesting. Well, you are very interesting. I'm just fascinated by how many different perspectives you have. Is there anything you want to add to kind of close up?
Oh, no, I just want
Yeah.
to thank you so much. I want to thank everyone at the gallery for giving me the opportunity of
Yeah.
exhibiting these works, really,
No.
and for
Yeah.
talking
We
about
want to thank you for being a part of it.